Hi friends, it's Becky, and I promised y'all a bead weaving tutorial, but this is not the bead weaving tutorial you were looking for. Instead, this is a special May the 4th, Star Wars Day bead weaving tutorial where we're going to make a Galactic Empire symbol. You can either use it as a pendant or as a Christmas tree decoration, or I'm going to be using earrings, which is why I'm going to make a second one. And what I'm going to be using with these is a 14mm coin bead, and I've got this puffed coin bead with the squiggles on it. It's really, really pretty. And it's going to be the center of our little design. And then I've got some white and black half tilas. And for each design, each one, you're going to need 6 of these and 6 of these. We're also going to need 6 full-size tila beads and a whole mess of black seed beads, and these are 11/0 seed beads that I'm going to be using. Any good beading thread will do. You'll want something that gives you some structure though, so you want something a little bit on the stiff side. I'm going to just pull off a wingspan's worth. That's going to do me for this project. And if you have a 35mm beading frame to bead around or bead to, you can use that. I don't have a 35mm beading frame, so I'm going to make one with some 20 gauge craft wire. I'm using black craft wire for that. When I get around to actually doing the wire working, I have some other tools that are going to come in handy for that. I'm going to be using some chain nose pliers, a 6-step bail making plier. You can also use round nose pliers, some flush cutters, and then just a form to form a circle around. I'm also, earlier I did this, I used a paper and pen to just trace out a circle that's the right size for this to bead into. And that helped me get the right size of circle when I was doing this. So I'll show you how to do that when we get to that part of it. But I also work hardened it using my bench block and a nylon tipped hammer. So that's our tools. Let's get our needle threaded. You're not going to be doing too many passes, so any beading needle will do, and it doesn't need to be super strong, so you can use any size of beading needle. You can use a wide-eyed needle, any of those. But yeah, it is Star Wars Day, and if you don't know what Star Wars Day is, it is a pun-based pseudo-holiday because it is the 4th of May, and this way you can tell people, May the 4th be with you. So this you can also wear tomorrow for Revenge of the 5th. All right, I've already done, oh sorry, last year I did Rebel Alliance earrings. I've been wearing these all day, and I'll put a link in the description to that tutorial if you want to see it. But this is just some Star Wars fun because I am a little bit of a nerd. I am a nerd like my mother before me. I grew up in a house that enjoyed science fiction, and you know, I mean, I have a brother who is named after a character in Dune, so that's where we go. That's where we are with that. But this is actually just one of those things that I really enjoy, is Star Wars and science fiction and making things, so why not do all of these together? And wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more black tila. All right, so what you want to do is get onto your needle a white half tila and a black tila, and just repeat that until you have 6 of each of them on your thread. Move them down to the end of your thread, not to the very end, close to the end. Leave yourself a little bit of a tail so you can tie things. And I'm just going to tie a knot right here to make this into a circle. Just a square knot will do. or if you want to, a surgeon's knot, just any kind of knot that will hold. And we'll keep this from drifting apart while you're working on it. All right. Now these are all going to be all wobbly and willy-nilly like that. I'm going to go through this next tila that's right next to this knot. Just going to go back through that so that my thread is coming out not next to the knot, but just a little ways away from it. Not very far. And now I'm going to go through the hole in this bead. All right, so I'm coming out of this tila bead. I'm going to find the half tila that is opposite there and go through that. Kind of carefully so it's not catching on things. Just kind of help pop this into place a little bit. It doesn't need to be tightened up yet. But now that it is coming out, so it's going into that side and the opposite side where it's coming out of, I'm going to go back into that same bead, because all we're doing right here is we're just going to pop this into place. It's going to be right here in the center of our galactic wheel. All right. And then I'm going to go into the same tila that we started going through. I'm just going to shift over here, go all the way through to this next tila. So it was into the half tila, the white half tila, and then through this black full tila. All right. If you set it down, it's sort of starbursting, but we're going to help solidify its shape a little bit by going through the top row. So I'm going to jump up from this hole to this one. It's just stepping up. So I'm coming out of that hole, going to go into this one. Up here. And we're just going to pick up an 11-0 and pop an 11-0 into place between each of these beads as we go around this wheel. Bloop, bloop, bloop. So we're going to do this all the way around. Off we go. I am getting caught on my tools, as I am wont to do. It happens. But we're just going to keep going around until we get to the other side. All the way around. I suppose I could have done like a little bit of this. But yes, I am still working on that other bead weaving tutorial. Sorry, you guys. But I had this idea last night, and I really wish I'd had this idea earlier this week, so it was already locked and loaded and ready to go. But I had this idea last night, so I sat down and played around with it and made it work today. And so we're just going to record this tutorial today. We're going to get it live so you guys can make some of this. And like I said, if you're not wearing it for the celebrations for May the 4th, then maybe you can wear it tomorrow for Revenge of the Sith. Or 5th. There we go. All right. So now that we've got an 11-0 seed bead placed between each of these tilas and half tilas all the way around, you notice it kind of makes a cupped shape. That's totally fine. That's what we want. This is what it looks like on the other side. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a tug just to tighten things. It doesn't need to be a big tug, just a little bit of one. And then I'm going to sew through this 11-0 that's next to where I'm coming out of, and the half tila, but not that 11-0 next to it, so that I'm coming out right there. All right, and I'm going to now be getting these black half tilas into shape. And each of these you need 6 of, so you need 6 of these, you need 6 of these, and you need 6 of the regular black tilas. So I'm going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead. We're just using black seed beads for this. I'm going to go through one of the holes in these half tilas and then pick up 3 more seed beads. 1, 2, 3. Just going to push this down next to my work so that it's in the right place for us to go through it again. I'm going to try to untangle it first though. So it's just a little tangled. That's fine. There we go. So there we have it right there. I've got my 1 seed bead, my half tila, and my 3 seed beads, and then I'm going to go back into the other hole of this half tila, like that. Pick up another seed bead and go into that half tila. And if you want to angle your needle enough, you can just keep going through the 11-0, the tila, and the 11-0 on the other side. I can't angle it so that it'll go through all of those. So just that angle is enough. And then we're going to go through that other half tila, that next one. All right, and now that we're going through this next half tila, we're going to do the same thing. Pick up one 11-0, go through one hole of the half tila and pick up 3 more 11-0s. And after you move this down next to your work, you're going to go back through that black half tila, pick up another seed bead, and sew into the other side of that white half tila, and then go through and move along all the way around the wheel. All right, so here is the last little protuberance that we are attaching. We've got that all on up there. And now I want to get some more 11-0s around these edges. And so to do that, I'm going to find this little 11-0 right here between, that separates the half tilas. And I want to come out of the top of that 11-0. All right, now that I am coming out of the top of that 11-0, I'm just giving a little tug to snug these up. It's totally fine that it is curved. That is perfectly fine. That's what I want for it. So now that I'm coming out of the top of there, I'm going to pick up 5 11-0s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so right down into the top of this 11-0, above the next, if I can angle this right, above the next half tila. So I'm coming out of this one and into this one, and I'm putting 5 seed beads in between them. And then I'm going to sew through the half tila that this is right above of. Wasn't very good grammar, Becky. And then sew up, bottom to the top of that next seed bead between these 2 tilas. And I'm going to do that all again. I'm going to pick up 5 more seed beads now that I'm coming out of the top of this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, we're only using 11-0 seed beads for this. And then from the top to the bottom of the next seed bead above that tila. If you angle it right, you can put it through the tila at the same time. That might save you a little bit of a step. So I'm going to do this all the way around the wheel, and I will meet you back here once we have that finished. All right, and here we're putting on our final 5. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong sci-fi. Go. I'm going to go through that tila again. That's that last one. And now I'm going to move my needle where it needs to be for the next step by going up that 11-0, the black half tila, and this 11-0 right up here at the top. And then sewing through this center bead. See how you've got 3 beads right here at the top? I just want to be coming out of that center bead for the next part. Now, I'm going to set this, well, not completely set it aside, but if you already have a 35mm beading frame that you want to do, you're going to want to skip this next part. If you do not and you'd like to make one with me, then grab your craft wire, a piece of paper, and a marker. And let's measure this and make sure that it's the right circle. Now, I already know that this is the right circle and the right size because I already measured it once. But I'm going to show you how I did that real quick so you know how you can do this too. Let's just place this on a piece of paper. Try and hold it firm so it doesn't move. And then just make a mark on each of these little guys. You want them to be squished flat because when we, let's make sure we're not making this too small, because when we start attaching it to the circle, it's gonna kind of pull it a little bit to stretch it into place. So having it be on the outside of this is the best way to do it. And then you can just connect the dots to make yourself a little circle with your marker. It doesn't have to be an exact circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as when you are making the shape with your craft wire, you can fit it around that. All right, now for the craft wire, I'm going to pull off about 7 inches of craft wire. This is 20 gauge craft wire, and I'm just warming it through and straightening a little bit with my fingers. I'm going to scooch out a little bit so you can see all of my hand movements and what I'm doing. It's just a way to warm this up. The softflex craft wire is a dead soft craft wire, and it has a coating on the outside of it for it to be permanently colored. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. And about 3 fingers from the end, I'm going to put a little bend into this wire like that. And I'm going to take my form that I'm forming this around, and the form can be a smaller circle than this. It can totally be a smaller circle. If it's a larger circle, it might be a little more difficult, but we're going to start with a smaller circle. And this bead container is just fine for that. I'm just going to wrap my wire around it a couple times. I just want to give it some memory that it wants to be curved so that when I take it off of here, it remembers that it wants to be curved. And now I'm just going to put this here on the form. I'm just going to open up this circle a little bit, matching it up with my marker as much as I can. All right, there we go. Now that it's matched up as much as I can get it, with this circle. And if you've got like a wire jig or something like that, you could do this too. I'm going to go ahead and put another bend in my wire right here. This is on the bent part. And this is going to be my guide that tells me what part of this wire needs to be wrapped around the other part. I'm just going to move this over here just a little bit. It's not completely firmly this shape until after we wire or we work harden it. So I'm just going to move this out of the way, make sure that we are absolutely the same size we want to be. And this part's a little bit tricky. What I want to do is hold my wire with one of my pliers, and I think I'm going to use my flat nose pliers for this because I can get a wider grip on my wires. I want to hold this end of the wire and this end of the wire while I bend this around that end. See, like that. And I'm just going to do a couple of wraps here. That's all we really need. And cut this excess. I'm going to give it a little bit of a squish to help it stay right there with my pliers, just right here on the pokey outy edge. And then I'm going to tip this right over the top of there and use either round nose pliers if you have them, or some of these, and I think just my smallest loop is going to be sufficient for this. I'm just going to make a little loop right here at the top of this ring. Center my loop. There we go. And now that I've got a loop made up here, I'm going to wrap my extra wire down around the rest of it. I'm going to be careful with my circle. It's okay if it's not completely circular, because these are just for fun. All right, so now that that's wrapped around a couple of times, all right. Double check that it's still the right size and shape. And I think that that is good. So now I've got my 35mm round hoop. It's time for me to work harden it. To do that, I also don't need my wire working tools anymore, except for one of them. And that is my pliers. So I can hold on to my hoop without getting my fingers in the way. And I am going to hammer this, and I'm going to do it off camera because it gets noisy. All right, so here's the part where if you already have a hoop, you're going to go straight to this instead of making a little hoop like I did. In this first part, if you've got a hoop that has a loop on it, then you'll do it this way. If you don't have a hoop that has a loop on it, then you don't have to worry about doing this part this way. You'll do it the other way, the way that I do each of these other ones. I've got my thread, I've got my hoop. I'm just gonna detangle this real quick because it's, there we go, that's much better. So I've got my thread coming out of one of these beads, and I'm totally off camera and I apologize for that. I didn't do anything yet. You didn't miss anything. So I'm coming out of this top bead right here on this little, the 3 beads, the middle bead, and I'm coming out of the right of this. I'm going to, instead of sewing up and over, I'm going to go just around this loop like that with my thread, and so into the left side of that same bead. I want to make sure that this loop stays where I put it while I'm pulling my thread through. So I'm going to do it carefully. And that's exactly what I wanted. This is the only time that I'm going to go around like a protuberance or something. The rest of the time we're going to go front to back or back to front, it doesn't matter which, around this hoop. So now that I've got that looped there, I'm going to travel with my needle and my thread back around till I get to the next group of 3 seed beads. And while I'm doing that, I'm just gonna tighten that up a little bit so it stays where I want it to go. And I went back down through this seed bead, and reinforcing things. So I'm going to go through this seed bead that's between these tilas. There's a reinforcement point. So I'm going to go through it and those 5 seed beads that we placed earlier. And this may be a little bit awkward, but it's necessary. Those 3. Back up here. And then I'm going to go up from the bottom through that seed bead, the tila, and then this seed bead up here. So it's just going to reinforce as well all the way around. And then I'm going to go through my middle bead in this group of 3. I'm going from front to back. You could also go from back to front if that's what you want to do. Front to back, when I come around the hoop with my needle, I'm just going to go into the opposite side of this bead. So I'm coming out of the, if I'm looking at it this way, it's on the right. I'm going around the front towards the back, and then through the, from left to right, through that bead again. And that's just going to anchor this end to the hoop. And then we're going to go back down through and move our thread along like until we get to the next one. We're going to repeat that step all the way around. All right, so I just attached the last one. I want to get this thread over here for the next part, or if you want to leave this as it is without doing the brick stitching, you can totally do that. But you'll want to skip over to the part where we are reinforcing the back a little bit in order to keep the bead from spinning like it is right now, because it's a little spinny. So we'll be doing that later. So you can skip over to that part if you're not going to brick stitch around it. If you are going to brick stitch around it though, let's go ahead and scooch our needle and our thread back to where we started over here. Come on, needle and thread. Go that way. All right. This also allows us to reinforce that last little section that didn't get that reinforcement previously. All right, now we're going to scooch our needle all the way back up here to the beginning of our hoop. And I'm going to go through this one bead again. And I'm just going to go around the hoop without any beads one time. And now I'm going to pick up 2 beads, go through the hoop, and then up through that second bead, like that. Let's move our tail out of the way. There we go. So now that those are on there, like that, I'm going to pick up another bead, go under the hoop, and I like to just use my finger and thumb to keep that bead from going under the hoop too. If it does, just put it back in place so that it can hang out right next to the other beads. And then you go up from the hoop to the bottom of the bead, and that helps lock it into place right there. I'm going to do that 2 more times before I let y'all time travel. Go to the future when this is finished. 1 more, just to get you a better idea of how that brick stitch works. And it just locks that into place. 1 more. Again, I like to just use my finger to hold the bead there while I'm pulling the thread through. And then once the thread is through, then you don't need your finger anymore. So I'm going to come all the way around the end and then show you how we're going to kind of reinforce this first one that didn't get the same reinforcement that these next ones did. And then we'll go back down into the middle and do that reinforcement on the back. All right, so I've just brick stitched all the way around here, and I just finished popping my last bead into place right here. I've got my thread coming up out of it. I'm just going to go underneath the wire work over here to the other side and go down through the top of that first bead that I added. There we go. And through underneath here. Just really want to reinforce that that's where these beads need to stay for now. Now that it's coming up from there, I'm going to go under the wire here and back through that first, again, that last bead. So we went through the first bead and this last bead, and I'm just going to go right back down through that center bead. Right? So the end of my thread is right here, but I'm not going to tie it off there yet. I want to make sure that we are sort of reinforcing this back side a little bit more by adding a few seed beads between my black tilas, and it's only on the back side. I don't want to have any of that visible from the front because I want to be able to see that galactic wheel like that. So I'm going to move my needle and thread down through the work. All right, I'm going to go through that, this 11-0, the tila, and this 11-0 right here. And then through this half tila, just the half tila. Then I'm going to jump down from this hole in the half tila to this hole and go through it. All right. And now I'm going to go through this black tila. And you can see this is spinning around, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm just going to pop it so that it's on that side. It's kind of popped above that while I work on this end of my work. And I'm going to just pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. Now I'm coming out of this black tila. I'm going to skip this white or the black full tila. I'm going to skip the white tila and sew into the black tila right there next to it. And then I'm going to do the same thing all the way around, where I pick up 2 11-0s, skip the half tila, and sew into the full tila. Just all the way around, giving me some extra stability here on the back side so that when I turn it over, the coin bead isn't going to be rotating and turning around and making this look like a mess. It's giving it a little tug to tighten it up. Again, this is going to be the back side, so it's totally fine that these black seed beads are visible. If you don't want the black seed beads to be visible, then just use some light colored seed beads, some white or pearl colored seed beads, something that's the same color as your white tila, your white half tilas. If you wanted it to be double-sided. And that wingspan's worth of thread, that is a really good amount of thread. I haven't had to add any thread to this, but I'm also not going to be wasting a ton of thread that I didn't need. All right, one more. Skipping over that one and going in. This hole is a little hard to get to. All right. There we go. And that's what it looks like on the front side. All right, so I'm coming out of this black tila. I want to get over here where this thread end is. So I'm going to jump over here to the opposite hole on this tila. Like that. And now I'm just going to tie these two together. Take my needle off. This is almost done. Like I said, you can use it as a Christmas tree decoration. You can use it as a pendant. I made 2, and I'm making them as earrings. 1, 2. Buckle my shoe. Then where are my scissors? There. All right, and just burn down those edges. Big wheel keep on turning. There we go. And we're done.